What if the biggest threat to Caitlin Clark's success isn't the defense, but her own coach? You don't take the most electrifying player in women's basketball history and clip her wings, but that's exactly what's happening in Indiana.
Caitlin Clark does return to the floor. How is she going to help elevate this team even more down the stretch of the season?
While Clark's been sidelined with injury, Coach Stephanie White dropped a bombshell. She's planning to take the ball out of Caitlin's hands. And now fans are furious. Nobody saw this coming. After dominating college basketball like no one before her, Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA as a generational talent.
Yeah, we have updates, and our recovery's going well. It's just, I think for us staying the course and making sure that we're really
the face of the league. She wasn't just a rookie; she was a revolution. Sold out arenas, record-breaking viewership, kids wearing her jersey in every city. Her presence changed the game overnight, and then she disappeared. On July 15th, the Indiana Fever quietly ruled her out with a vague soft tissue injury. No play, no practice, no press conference, just a ghost. Weeks passed, no return timeline, no details, just Coach Stephanie White repeating the same carefully crafted line.
With Caitlin, at the end of the day, no matter how many games they win, they lost more games without Caitlin Clark playing. So everybody argument that Caitlin Clark is the Achilles heel, Caitlin Clark is this and that, your argument is obsolete, bro.
We're taking it day by day. There's no timetable. Fans were left scratching their heads. What actually happened? Was it serious? Was she being overprotected? Or was something deeper going on? Then came the update everyone had been waiting for. Except, instead of answers, it raised even more questions. We're going to reintegrate her from a strength and conditioning standpoint, give her a bit of a different role. Wait, different role? What does that even mean? Up until now, every Fever game had run through Clark. She was the system, the engine, the lightning rod. So why, while she's still recovering, was her coach already talking about changing how she plays? That's when the alarm bells really started to ring. Fans weren't just concerned about her health anymore. They were worried about her future in Indiana, and things were about to get even more confusing. When Stephanie White finally broke her silence in an ESPN interview, fans were expecting clarity. What they got instead was chaos. She began with cautious optimism, praising Clark's impact.
Remember, she literally added nearly 3 points a game to her average. She was setting records for assists. Now, that's with Christy Sides having understood the job and just letting Caitlin Clark go wild. That's why I won't buy into the
saying her gravity on the court opens up the floor, and that her return would make us even more dangerous. So far, so good. But then came the curveball no one expected. I think it could be really good for us to get Clark off the ball a little more in certain situations. Wait, what? This is Caitlin Clark, the most creative playmaker the women's game has ever seen. A walking highlight reel with Steph Curry range and Magic Johnson court vision. And now, she's being repositioned to the wing? Fans were stunned. For months, they've watched the Fever struggle without her on the ball. The offense slows, spacing collapses, open shots vanish. And now, with Clark on the verge of returning, the plan is to further limit her role? We want to give her a breather, White explained. She won't have to bring the ball up 94 feet, and we're challenging her to be a better defender. Translation: Clark, who thrives in transition, who creates chaos when she pushes pace, is now being asked to chill in the corner and focus on defense. The fan base erupted. Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, every platform lit up with criticism.
Stephanie White praising Caitlin Clark. Did hell freeze over somewhere I don't know about? I don't know. We'll see. But she actually made some very nice comments, I guess, about Caitlin Clark today. She was on with ESPN.
One post read, "This is like putting training wheels on a Ferrari." Another, "You don't adjust Caitlin Clark to your system. You adjust your system to Caitlin Clark." And here's the wildest part. This wasn't some long-term strategy. This was the plan before she even got back on the floor, before she had a chance to play at full speed, before she had a chance to prove herself again. Instead of building around her, it seemed like the Fever were preparing to shrink her. But that was only part of the problem, because while White was redesigning the offense,
thankfully she went on ESPN and didn't use the phrase blessing in disguise. Like, I mean this when I say this. Like, I've said this about Stephanie White playing times. I actually think Stephanie White's a hell of a coach.
the Fever were quietly thriving, or so it seemed. At first glance, it almost looked like the Indiana Fever were doing just fine without Caitlin Clark. Since she was sidelined, they've managed to stay close to .500, pulling off wins, staying in the playoff race, and showing flashes of cohesion. On paper, not bad. A few analysts even suggested the team was playing more balanced basketball without her. But don't let the box scores fool you, because when you dig deeper, the cracks start to show. Without Clark, the Fever's offense has gone from dynamic to directionless. They average 6 fewer assists per game, fewer open look threes, and double the turnovers. Fast break points, down. Ball movement, static. Floor spacing, non-existent. You can feel the difference. The team plays slower, the offense is clunkier, and no one on the roster commands the same defensive attention that Clark does. When she's on the floor, defenses are stretched thin trying to guard her logo threes and surgical passes.
Stephanie White, do not put Ari and Kelsey and Caitlin on the floor at the same time. Please don't do it. Please don't do it, man. Please. All right? That lineup made no sense at all. All right? Why would you do that? Why would you do that, Stephanie White? All right, now.
Without her, defenders sag off, lanes collapse, the game tightens. And here's the kicker. Even with all the talk about balance, they still lose more than they win without her. The so-called improvement is barely statistical noise. But the real cost isn't just in the playbook. It's in the pain. Because while Clark is being managed carefully, the one thing the Fever haven't managed is the target on her back. And what happened next was unavoidable. You don't become the most talked about player in women's basketball without drawing attention. But for Caitlin Clark, the spotlight has come with a price. A painful one. According to league tracking, 17% of all flagrant fouls in the WNBA this season have been committed against one player, Caitlin Clark. Let that sink in. There are over 140 active players in the league, and nearly 1 in 5 flagrants against a single rookie. This isn't just physical basketball, it's something else. Blindside body checks, swipes to the face, cheap shots in transition, and the most disturbing part? A pattern is emerging. The same teams, the same players, over and over again. Take the Chicago Sky, for example. A staggering 80% of those flagrant fouls came from matchups against them alone. That's not competition. That's a campaign. And what happens after these incidents? Barely anything. A couple of fines. A flagrant upgraded after the fact. No suspensions. No ejections. No meaningful consequences. It sends a dangerous message, not just to Clark, but to the entire league. You can hit the star and walk away with a slap on the wrist. And what's even worse, while all this is happening, while Clark is taking hits that would sideline most players for a season, her own coach responds by taking the ball out of her hands. Not by demanding protection, not by calling out officials, but by minimizing her offensive role and shifting the focus to defense. It's no wonder fans are furious. They're watching their franchise player get physically worn down, and instead of adjusting the game plan to protect her, the team is forcing her into a system that leaves her more vulnerable. This isn't just bad coaching, it's negligence, and it's starting to take a toll, not just on Clark's body, but on her entire identity as a player. At the heart of all this chaos lies one simple question. Is Caitlin Clark supposed to fit into the system or be the system? Because right now, Stephanie White is coaching like it's the former. Let's be clear. Clark isn't just another talented rookie. She's a once-in-a-generation talent, a scorer and facilitator, a playmaker and leader. She's not built to stand in the corner and wait for a swing pass. She's built to orchestrate the entire offense. And yet, White insists on pushing a scheme that worked for her in Connecticut. A slower, more methodical style of play, where ball control matters more than flow. The problem? That might work for role players, but not for superstars. Think about it. Did anyone ever ask Magic Johnson to play off the ball? Did Sue Bird ever take a breather by camping out on the wing? Could you imagine telling Steph Curry not to shoot threes until the fourth quarter? Of course not, because with players like that, you build the team around them. You elevate their strengths. You let them dictate the tempo, take risks, and change games. And yet, Stephanie White continues to treat Clark like a puzzle piece. Not the centerpiece. Not the identity of the franchise. Just another moving part. Even insiders are starting to whisper about division in the coaching staff. Reports suggest some assistants want Clark to have more control. That the team functions better when the offense runs through her naturally. That forcing her into this rigid mold is stalling her growth and the team's momentum. But so far, White has stood firm. And the cost? It's not just strategic. It's personal. Because for the first time in her career, Clark looks frustrated, confused, diminished. She's not just being asked to play differently. She's being asked to play beneath her potential. And her response? It's starting to show. Sometimes, you don't need to read between the lines. Because Caitlin Clark has already told us exactly how she feels. Earlier this season, when asked about being limited in her playing time, she didn't hold back. I don't anticipate a certain level. I'm not a huge fan of minutes restrictions. I think they're silly. That wasn't a vague, media-trained answer. That was honesty. That was frustration breaking through the cracks of professionalism. And it didn't stop there. I told them I don't want to come back, unless I'm 100%. Why would I be out there to play 20 minutes? Let that sink in. While the coaching staff tries to play it safe, easing her back in, tightening her leash, Clark is practically begging to be let off it. This is a player who led Iowa to back-to-back national championship games, playing 35-plus minutes a night after night. And now she's being benched for rest mid-game? The confusion is written all over her face during pressers. Her body language? Tense. Shoulders tight. Eyes down. When asked about playing off the ball or her return to the floor, she's polite, but clearly not thrilled. And honestly, who would be? You're the most hyped player in a generation. You shattered college records. You drove the entire WNBA economy forward in your rookie season. And now you're being told to wait. Be patient. Play smaller. This isn't just about minutes. It's about momentum. It's about rhythm. It's about identity. Because when you take a player like Caitlin Clark and you start placing restrictions on her minutes, on her role, on her leadership, you're not just managing her career. You're muffling her greatness. And now, with trade whispers, fan backlash, and media pressure building, it's starting to feel like something's got to give. Time is running out. The Indiana Fever are barely clinging to a playoff spot. The margin for error? Razor thin. One cold stretch, one bad rotation, one injury setback, and the season's over. And this is where the real tension begins. Because Clark's rookie window isn't just some feel-good story. It's a marketing machine. A ratings boost. A once-in-a-decade opportunity. But if the team fails to capitalize on it now, if they wasted trying to slowly develop her into their system, the damage might not just be short-term. It could be franchise-altering. The speculation is already swirling. Talk shows are tossing out what-ifs. Fans are whispering about opt-out clauses, overseas options, or future trade requests if things don't improve. One popular podcast host even asked the question out loud. Could Caitlin Clark walk if the Fever don't adapt to her? Let's be clear. There's no official word that she's unhappy. No confirmed reports of tension behind the scenes. But with every vague update, every confusing quote, and every moment she's forced to play a role that isn't hers, the anxiety grows. This isn't just about basketball. It's about trust. Clark trusted this organization to build around her, not to fit her into someone else's blueprint. And fans are already picking sides. Just scroll through social media. Let CC cook. White is holding her back. Build the system around the player, not the other way around. But while fans debate and the season hangs in the balance, there's one looming question. What happens if things don't change? Because the clock isn't just ticking on a playoff run. It's ticking on Clark's patience, her health, and her long-term future in Indiana. And if you're the Fever front office, you have to ask yourself, can you afford to waste another game? So now we're at the crossroads. On one side, you have Caitlin Clark, a generational talent and national icon, a player who doesn't just break records, she redefines what's possible. She thrives in chaos. She wants the pressure. She's ready to lead. On the other side, Stephanie White, a coach with experience, structure, and a system she trusts. A system that, to her credit, has worked before. But not with this player. Not with this moment. And not in this league climate, where stars are the system. And now both sides are digging in. White is refusing to hand over the keys. Clark is too respectful to start a public fight. But the cracks are showing. And in the middle of it all, a frustrated fan base, an underperforming team, and a playoff spot hanging by a thread. So, who blinks first? Does Clark eventually accept a smaller role in the hopes of long-term health and stability? Does White finally bend her system to let her star shine freely? Or does the Fever front office step in and make a change before it's too late? Because here's the truth. If they don't let Caitlin be Caitlin, if they keep playing it safe, slow, and small, then they're not just wasting a season. They're wasting a career. This is bigger than minutes, bigger than rotations. This is about recognizing greatness in real time and knowing how to support it. And right now, the Fever are failing that test. The hope that Clark comes back, goes scorched earth again, and reminds the world why she's the most electric force in basketball. But for that to happen, one thing has to change. She needs to be the system, not just a piece of it. Until then, the Fever won't rise. And the league's brightest star will be stuck dimming her own light just to fit in.